Members, a quorum is present. We ask our guests and visitors in the gallery to please stand for this morning's prayer. Father Constantine Papadimos will lead us in prayer today.
Good morning. Let us pray. Lord, the psalmist wrote, "Create in me a clean heart, O God." A clean heart means openness, that complete freedom, that detachment that allows us to love you without hindrance, without obstacles. Lord, fill our hearts with new thoughts and new desires that have their source in you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. If I could ask everyone in the gallery to please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, led today by Assembly Member Anthony Adams. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll move on now to the reading of the previous day's journal.
Assembly Chamber, Sacramento, Monday, September 1st, 2009. The Assembly met at 9:30 a.m. Honorable Isidore Hall III, Assistant Speaker Pro Tem, presiding. Assistant Chief Clerk Timothy Moore reading.
Mr. Torrico moves, Mr. Garrick seconds. The reading of the previous day's journal will be dispensed with. There are no presentation of petitions today. Introduction and reference of bills will be deferred. Reports of committees will be deemed read. Amendments deemed adopted. We have no messages from the Governor nor messages from the Senate, so we'll move on now to motions and resolutions. Mr. Torrico.
You got it. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning. I request unanimous consent to allow Speaker Bass and Assembly Member Furutani to have guests and photographers on the floor today.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, at the request of the authors, I'm giving one-day notice of intent to remove the following bills from the inactive file. File item A-19, SB 538, by the Senate Purse Committee. File item A-21, SB 388, by Senator Calderon, and file item A-47, SB 655, by Senator Padilla.
Without objection. All right, members, we do have some hearings taking place today off the floor, so we're going to begin with our third reading, Assembly Bill third reading. And we'll pass temporarily on some of the other business before us today until other members can join us and leave their hearings off the floor. So we'll go on to begin with All right, members, we're ready now to begin with file item 71, AB 1506 by Mr. Anderson. He is prepared to present that. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1506 by Assemblymember Anderson and others, an act relating to state funds and declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. Anderson, I believe you have a prop you would like to present on the floor today.
I do, as a matter of fact. Madam Speaker, members, 1506 is a straightforward bill. It simply tells our taxpayers and our employees in the state of California, in Wall Street, that we stand behind our debt. And when we send out an IOU, 1506 would allow recipients of the IOU, you know what,
Would you like attention on the floor, Mr. Anderson? Members and also visitors in the rear of the chamber, if you could please direct your attention. We have a bill being presented on the floor. If we could have quiet in the chamber. Please continue.
1506 is a simple bill that simply states the state must accept its own IOU. Since our budget, over 327,000 people in businesses have received and have been the recipient of IOUs, almost $2 billion. I want to present to you over 1,500 letters from all walks of life in California. We have school boards, water boards, we have city council supervisors, we have businesses, we have our own controller, John Chung's letter of support. We've got unions on board. This, my friends, we have over 60 co-authors on this floor today in support of this bill. This is a bipartisan moment where we're doing something for taxpayers, we're doing something for our employees, we're doing the right thing. I want to personally thank the Chair of Approps and the Chair of Business and Professions for their help in helping me craft a quality bill. And I want to thank everybody in this room for all the support that they've given me in moving this bill forward. It's good for California, it's good for Californians, and it sends a great message to Wall Street that we think that our debt is important and we're addressing it in a meaningful way, and we're moving California forward. So with that, I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Seeing no discussion or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the votes. Ayes 54, noes 0. The bill passes. Ayes 54, noes 0 on the urgency. Ayes 54, noes 0 on the bill. The bill passes. Mr. Torlakson, are you standing in order to present file item 85?
Yes.
For Senator Cox? Very well. So clerk will read file item 85.
Senate Bill 249 by Senator Cox and others, an act relating to vaccinations.
You may open, Mr. Torlakson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This bill simply adds a recommendation to immunize children as young as 11 years old for meningitis. This would be added to the education program, which is now administered by our health department. U.S. Center for Disease Control has recommended this vaccine for children before they enter high school. It's a devastating disease. This will help us prevent it. I urge an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Torlakson. Seeing no debate or discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 54, noes 0. The measure passes. Members, we are moving through the file. If the sergeants have come to your desk and asked you to be prepared to take up a bill, please know that we may get to you very quickly. We'll move now to file item 86 by Senator Maldonado, presented by Ms. Ma. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 492 by Senator Maldonado and others, an act relating to loitering.
You may open, Ms. Ma.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, SB 492 is an important measure designed to help keep our kids safe at school by strengthening penalties on gang members who loiter around school grounds. No child should have to look out the window and see gang activity just on the other side of the fence, or learn with danger lurking just outside the school walls. This bill doesn't create a new crime. It doesn't punish gang members who are trying to get their lives back together. This bill only targets those who are convicted of loitering and who have no legitimate reason to be near school grounds. SB 492 has received bipartisan support in the Senate and the Assembly, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 52, noes 0. The measure passes. We move on to file item 89 by Senator Kehoe, presented by Assemblymember Block. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 93 by Senator Kehoe, an act relating to redevelopment.
You may open, Mr. Block.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. SB 93 is a bill that requires redevelopment agencies to create a tight nexus between redevelopment projects and their benefit to the taxpayers whose dollars are being used to eliminate blight. Members, this bill comes to you after months of negotiation and compromise between the California Redevelopment Association and Senator Kehoe. The bill was introduced in response to an unfortunate agreement between the city and counties of San Diego, where $33 million worth of Grantville redevelopment money was used more than 15 miles away on projects with no benefit to the residents. This is not how redevelopment dollars should be spent. Redevelopment is a great tool when it's used right. SB 93 increases transparency in the agency's financial decisions and can improve the relationship between local communities and the redevelopment agencies that serve them. This bill is supported by the Grantville community as well as by the California Redevelopment Association, AFSCME, and the League of California Cities. The bill has not received any no votes. I urge your aye vote today.
Seeing no discussion or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 54, noes 0. The bill passes. We move now to file item 94. Mr. Arambula is prepared to take that up for Senator Pavley. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 197 by Senator Pavley and others, an act relating to domestic violence.
You may open, Mr. Arambula.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, Senate Bill 197 is sponsored by the Los Angeles District's Attorney's Office as well as by domestic violence groups throughout the state. This bill would provide the option of conditional exams for victims and material witnesses in certain domestic violence cases. This bill was significantly amended in the Assembly Public Safety Committee to address opposition concerns, and it now only allows the use of conditional exams in domestic violence cases where the witness's life is in danger, and in cases where the witness is dissuaded from testifying because of intimidation or physical threats. Under the bill, if a witness is unavailable at the time of actual trial, the conditional exam, which still allows for cross-examination, may be presented by videotape or read to the jury during the actual trial. This is an important bill for the protection of domestic violence victims, and it holds batterers accountable for their crimes. It builds upon current law, which already allows for preserved testimony for vulnerable populations like the elderly and the disabled. This bill was unanimously approved by the Assembly Public Safety Committee. There is now no opposition, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Mr. Adams.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise in strong support of this measure, especially in light of some of the cuts that were taken by the governor in the domestic violence arena and the amount of need that exists out there. I think this measure is a very worthy one and worthy of your support. I would strongly urge an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion or debate, Mr. Rombula, do you care to close?
Would just respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 58, no 0. The measure passes. We move on to file item 97 by Senator Benoit. Mr. Hagman will present. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 204 with amendments by Assemblymember Hagman.
This is on the amendments, Mr. Hagman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. These are amendments that were submitted across the desk. The amendments are a cleanup measure of a bill that was passed last year, SB 1007, which regulated the Section 1031 of the currency exchange industry. They will allow people called exchange accommodators to obtain fidelity bonds and errors emission insurance in accordance with 1007. Request that you approve the amendments.
Any objection to a voice vote on the amendments? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by the usual sign of aye. Any opposed? The amendments are adopted. Bill is out to print, back to file. We move on to file item 101, again for purpose of amendments. Mr. Nava will present for Senate committee. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 819 with amendments by Assemblymember Nava.
You may open on the amendments, Mr. Nava.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. SB 819 is a Senate Committee on Business, Professions, and Economic Development urgency omnibus bill and the subject of licensure and regulation of various professions and vocations. A number of provisions in this bill make several non-controversial, minor, technical, and clarifying changes to the B&P Code. There's no known opposition to the bill. Ask for an aye vote.
Any objection to adopting these amendments by voice vote? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Bill is back to print, out to print, back to file. We move on to file item 105. Mr. Calderon will present for the Senate Committee on Revenue and Taxation. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 822 by the Senate Committee on Revenue and Taxation, an act relating to taxation.
You may open, Mr. Calderon.
Yes, Madam Speaker, members, this is a committee bill. It is a number of technical, non-controversial measures relating to the local administration of property tax. There is no opposition. I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no debate or discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 55, no 0. The measure passes. Mr. Fong, are you prepared to take up file item 109 for Senator Corbett? Very well. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 400 with amendments by Assemblymember Fong.
You may open, Mr. Fong.
Madam Speaker, members, the following amendments have been requested by the Administration and the Department of Public Health to make this bill uniform with their enforcement efforts. I respectfully request your aye vote.
Mr. Hagman?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We do request a roll call vote on these amendments.
Very well. Members, we'll do a roll call on these amendments, not a voice vote. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. This is on the amendments, members. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 35, noes 19 on the amendments. The amendments are adopted. Bill is out to print, back to file. Members, we'll go back to file item 106. Mr. Tran is presenting for Senator Negrete McLeod. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 367 by Senator Negrete McLeod, an act relating to discrimination and declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. Tran, you may open.
Thank you, Madam Speakers. Good morning, members. SB 367 would amend the Unreal Civil Rights Act to clarify that it is not a violation for businesses to provide discounts for people who had their salaries cut, been furloughed, or been laid off. I want to make it clear that SB 367 applies to all employees in the public as well as the private sectors. In our current economic climate, we should be applauding businesses that are trying to assist their customers who are down and out on their luck, not leaving them open to frivolous lawsuits. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no debate or discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 54, ayes 55, no 0 on the urgency. Ayes 55, no 0 on the bill. The bill passes. We move to file item 107 by Senator Romero, presented by Assemblymember Torrico. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 680 with amendments by Assemblymember Torrico.
You may open, Mr. Torrico.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The amendments remove the urgency clause, add 2 authors, Senator Alquist and Assemblymember Buchanan, and remove 1 co-author. Respectfully ask for an aye vote on the amendments.
This is on the amendments. Members, we can do this by voice vote. All those in favor of adopting the amendment signify by the usual sound of aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The bill is amended. Back to print, out to print, back to file. Members, we will move ahead to file item 120 by Senator Corbett. Mr. Eng is presenting, or Mr. Fong, you're presenting file item 120? Very well. Clerk will read. File item 120.
Senate Bill 34 by Senator Corbett and others, an act relating to petitions.
Mr. Fong, you may open.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. SB 34 would prohibit payment to circulators on a per-signature basis in order to reduce their incentive to collect fraudulent signatures. This bill does not prohibit paying circulators by salary or hourly wage. Further, it protects the integrity of the initiative process by banning a practice that encourages circulators to submit illegally collected signatures. SB 34 is supported by the Secretary of State. I respectfully request your aye vote.
Mr. Berryhill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in opposition to SB 34. SB 34 is simply an assault on the fundamental right to qualify and pass initiatives. I can see no other intent of this bill other than to limit the number of initiatives on a ballot, which ultimately limits the voice of all Californians. We already have safeguards that ensure that only valid signatures count toward qualifying an initiative. Signature gatherers have an incentive to ensure that all signatures they collect are valid. If they are not, the initiative simply does not qualify, and the signature gatherer can be subject to criminal penalties. Many of these signature gatherers are young people, some college kids, who are very interested in getting involved in the political process, which is a good thing and something we all hope that we can inspire these kids. They are gaining valuable experience, and it will serve them very well as they work toward becoming the leaders of tomorrow. I see no reason to discourage them or prevent them from earning a few bucks to continue their education. Members, the people turn to the initiative process to solve California's pressing problems because they have lost faith in the ability of this institution to do the job its members have been elected to do. Let's not limit the ability of the people to try to fix a system that clearly has some flaws and is broken. I thank you, and I urge a no vote.
Mr. Duvall.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I stand in strong opposition to this bill because we must defend the fundamental right of California citizens to enact necessary reforms when legislation cannot be the act on their behalf. I sincerely hope you all vote no.
Mr. DeVore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise in opposition to SB 34 because it represents a fundamental assault on the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. In fact, this bill infringes against our First Amendment rights of free speech and in all likelihood will be tied up in court for months, maybe years, with expensive litigation that ultimately the state of California will lose. Ladies and gentlemen, this measure does not discourage fraud. In fact, because signature gatherers today can be paid per signature, they're already incentivized to do the right thing because they're paid per valid signature. And when you end up collecting fraudulent signatures, those individuals can get in severe trouble for breach of contract and end up not getting paid. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, the courts have held that time and time again, using the initiative process to change our government is one of the most fundamental rights of our representative democracy, especially here in California, where we've had the initiative process for about 100 years. Ladies and gentlemen, the First Amendment severely restricts the ability of any state to, in turn, restrict the right of the people to qualify initiatives for the ballot. I believe that this initiative, this measure, is destined for a court battle, as I said. I believe it's destined for failure. And I would respectfully submit to the members of this body that if you disagree with the ballot measure, the proper arena to fight that ballot measure is in the court of public opinion, to try to convince the majority of Californians of the correctness of your position and defeat the ballot measure in public, not try some backdoor way to make it more difficult for the people to qualify ballot measures, not some way to throw up more roadblocks because you simply don't like it when the people exercise their right to directly change the laws or the Constitution of the state of California. I believe that the burdensome requirements in this bill are unwarranted, unnecessary, and most likely unconstitutional, and I would urge your no vote.
Ms. Yamada.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. You know, once again, I rise because the content of the dialogue here from the other side of the aisle borders on hyperbole and is just raising issues that are not pertinent to what this bill speaks to. Nothing in this bill is going to remove anyone's First Amendment rights to free speech. In fact, I think when Hiram Johnson addressed this issue and brought this process forward to Californians, the right to petition our government, I don't think he had in his mind that there would be a cost or a payment associated with this. So all this measure does, all this bill does, is simply change the method of payment to the same process that will remain available. And I just have to comment that the remarks made by the other side of the aisle are not pertinent to this bill. This is a common sense and straightforward protection for the initiative process. Therefore, I respectfully urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yamada. Ms. Salas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My colleague delineated many of the reasons why I stand in strong support of this bill. This bill does in no way circumvent the initiative process. What we have seen in our community, certainly, and I think that many of us can attest to this, is the method of collecting signatures and getting paid for each signature that is gathered has really led to a frenzy of people that hang out in front of department stores, grocery stores, and it has created very, very aggressive people that will actually chase you down and try to get you to sign a petition. And not only that, a lot of times they give you misinformation and they misrepresent what the petition is all about. And I make it a practice of asking people that are asking for my signature for a measure to explain it to me. And many times they don't know what they're pushing, and they misrepresent what they're doing, and they'll frame their story or their pitch about what they want you to hear. And I've seen time and time again many voters, just to get rid of these pesky people that are chasing them down, is to sign something. Now, they may be a valid voter, but the method in which they are obtaining the signatures very many times is done really in a manner that is not truthful. So I think that this will eliminate this. If you're paying somebody on an hourly basis, they're going to be paid for doing their job, and I think that it will actually create a process that's a lot better. So I strongly support this measure.
Ms. Harkey.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise only because I'm taking a little bit of umbrage here to the comments that the other side of the aisle is engaging in unnecessary hyperbole and exaggeration of what's going on. I think that when the initiative process was initiated in the state of California, we did not have 36 to 37 million people. So I think to go back to that era, I believe that at that time that the state was more Northern California focused and populated, and it was a lot easier to meet the requirements. What this bill does is discourage grassroots who oftentimes have jobs, are working, but have an issue, something that they wish to pursue, from being able to fulfill the signature gathering process. Now, I agree there are problems with the initiative process, but this is not the way to solve them. And while I appreciate that we probably need to take up this debate, I do not believe that we should be called, being reckless in this House or whatever has been used over the past couple of days for merely expressing an opinion, and I think a well-founded one. Thank you very much.
All debate having ended, Mr. Fong, you may close.
Okay, this bill does not prohibit paying circulators by salary or hourly wage. Further, it protects the integrity of the initiative process by banning a practice that encourages circulators to submit illegally collected signatures. So I respectfully request your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Fong. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote.
Is it this one? 819? That's the only
All
one.
members vote who desire to vote.
What's the amendment?
Want to take yours up?
All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Fong moves a call. Both sides. Members, we inadvertently passed over Mr. De La Torre's presentation on behalf of Senator Negrete McLeod, file item 117. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 674 by Senator Negrete McLeod, an act relating to healing arts.
You may open, Mr. De La Torre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. SB 674 attempts to guarantee the public's safety by strengthening the regulations and oversight of fertility clinics and surgical centers performing cosmetic procedures, and ensures that the quality of care standards are in place at these clinics and checked by the appropriate accrediting agency. Physicians performing cosmetic surgery obviously has been going on for a while, but in the last several years, these complex procedures have been performed in settings outside of hospitals in what are called outpatient surgery centers. These physician-owned clinics are accredited, not licensed, and this measure will assure that these surgery centers have the same standards and requirements as clinics that are licensed by the Department of Public Health. Lastly, there's a growing trend in using medical spa clinics to perform certain cosmetic procedures with little physician supervision. This bill would require the medical board to establish appropriate level of physician availability in these settings. In terms of the fertility clinics, Octomom had her kids in my district, and that's why I was asked to carry this bill. I ask for your aye vote on this.
Seeing no discussion or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 60, noes 0. The measure passes.
Members, if I can have you to direct your attention to the rear of the chambers by the Speaker's desk. Mr. Warren Furutani and Mrs. Bonnie Lowenthal is there with a special guest, Ms. Olivia Aoki. And I think Mr. Furutani will have a brief presentation. All right. Well, it gives me great pleasure to introduce and welcome Ms. Olivia Aoki to the California State Assembly. Olivia is a 16-year-old young leader and junior at the Long Beach Poly High School. She is a member of the College Prep PACE program and a member of the girls' varsity cross-country team. We have been the Moore League champions for 5 years in a row. Olivia is a member of the Top Wind and Wind Ensemble and Top Jazz Band in Poly's two-time Grammy Award-winning music program and has participated as a member of the prestigious California All-State Honor Band. She has also been a member of the Southern All-Star Jazz Band for the last 3 years. Please welcome Ms. Olivia Aoki. Welcome to the California State Assembly. Okay, we'll move to file item 10, AB 330. Ms. Saldana, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 330 by Assembly Member Saldana and others, an act relating to elections.
Ms. Saldana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, AB 330 requires county elections officials to require at least, or provide rather, at least a 5-day public notice of where and when programming and tabulating of and testing of electronic voting devices will occur. This increases transparency and public participation in the elections process. It is passed out of the Assembly earlier, 76-0, received bipartisan support in the Senate. I ask for your support of Senate amendments for concurrence.
We'll pass and retain on this bill for now. Probably to like 2, I'm sure. Yeah. Okay. Mr. Krikorian, for what purpose?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Returning to motions and resolutions.
Without objection.
I request unanimous consent to waive the one-day waiting period for the following Assembly concurrence bills. Item 4, AB 1083 by Assemblymember Perez, John Perez. Item 5, AB 1270 by Assemblymember Torrico. Item 6, AB 1578 by the Government Operations Committee by Assemblymember Cotto. Item number 8, AB 130 by Assemblymember Jeffries. Item 10, AB 330 by Assemblymember Saldana et al. Item 13, AB 443 by Assemblymember Galgiani et al. Item 15, AB 494 by Assemblymember Caballero. Item 16, AB 531 by Assemblymember Saldana. Item 18, AB 599 by Assemblymember Hall. Item 19, AB 691 by Assemblymember Gilmore et al. Item 20, AB 725 by Assemblymember Jones et al. Item 21, AB 729 by Assemblymember Evans. Item 23, AB 769 by Assemblymember Torres. Item 25, AB 811 by Assemblymember John Perez. Item 26, AB 818 by Assemblymember Hernandez. Item 28, AB 890 by Assemblymember John Perez. Item 30, AB 921 by Assemblymember Jones et al. Item 32, AB 1110 by Assemblymember Fuentes. Item 33, AB 1216 by Assemblymember Evans. Item 34, AB 1281 by Assemblymember Portantino. Item 35, AB 1282 by Assemblymember Hall et al. Item 36, AB 1328 by Assemblymember Salas. Item 37, Item 37, AB 1516 by Assemblymember Liu. Item 38, AB 17 by Assemblymember Swanson. Item 39, AB 652 by Assemblymember Skinner. Item 40, AB 681 by Assemblymember Hernandez. Item 41, AB 830 by Assemblymember Cook et al. And item 42, ACR 49 by Assemblymember Evans.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I also ask unanimous consent to waive the one-day waiting period for the following Assembly concurrence bills. Item 7, AB 888 by Assemblymember Price. Item 9, AB 144 by Assemblymember Ma. Item 11, AB 368 by Assemblymember Skinner. Item 12, AB 398 by Assemblymember Monning et al. Item 14, AB 469 by Assemblymember Eng et al. Item 17, AB 571 by Assemblymember Saldana. Item 22, AB 755 by Assemblymember Brownlee. Item 24, AB 772 by Assemblymember Amiano. Item 27, AB 881 by Assemblymember Huffman et al. Item 31, AB 958 by Assemblymember Eng. Item 43, ACR 54 by Assemblymember Brownlee et al.
Without objection. Mr. Hackman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We do object to the last set of bills being pulled off. We do request a roll call vote and request the Republicans to vote no.
All right, we will have a roll call vote. Mr. Torrico is asking, Mr. Krikorian is asking for an aye vote, and Mr. Hackman is asking for a no vote. Clerk will open the roll. Mr. Krikorian is asking for an aye vote. Mr. Hackman is asking for a no vote. The ayes have it. Mr. Krikorian, you may continue. What the?
So let's go ahead
Mr. Krikorian, you may continue.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request unanimous consent to waive the one-day waiting period for bills amended on the Assembly floor yesterday. They are File Item 62, ACR 88 by Assemblymember Torlakson, File Item 110, SB 412 by Senator Kehoe through Assemblymember Skinner, File Item 123, SB 135 by Senator Flores through Assemblymember Nava, File Item 142, SB 397 by Senator Calderon through Assemblymember Torrico.
Without objection.
Also, Mr. Speaker, I request unanimous consent to waive the one-day waiting period for the following bill amended on the Assembly floor yesterday, that being File Item 156, SB 790 by Senator Pavley through Assemblymember Monning.
Very well, Mr. Hackman.
Mr. Speaker, we do oppose this. We request a roll call vote.
Without objection. Mr. Krikorian is asking for an aye vote. Mr. Hackman is asking for a no vote. And Mr. Torrico has seconded the motion from Mr. Krikorian. Clerk will open the roll. Mr. Krikorian is asking for an aye vote. Mr. Hackman is asking for a no vote. Clerk will close the roll. Clerk will keep the roll open. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the votes. 41's aye, noes 21. Motion to suspend the rules is adopted. Ms. Saldana. File item 10, AB 330. Ms. Saldana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've made the presentation, so now that we have made this eligible to take up today, I ask for your aye vote.
Very well. Clerk will open the roll. All those vote desire to vote? 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 Clerk will close the roll. Tally the votes. Ayes 52, no 0. Measure is adopted. File 16, AB 531, Ms. Saldana, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 531 by Assemblymember Saldana, an act relating to energy.
Ms. Saldana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this is a follow-up bill to legislation that was signed by the governor last year. It created the first in the nation energy efficiency benchmarking program. This amendment that has been taken in the Senate will allow the scope of the bill to meet some of the California Energy Commission determinations on implementation schedules. The bill has no opposition. It's had bipartisan support. I ask for your aye vote on Senate amendments.
Seeing and hearing no debate or discussion, clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote? All those vote who desires to vote? All those vote who desires to vote? All those vote who desires to vote? Clerk will close the roll. Tally the votes. Ayes 58, no 0. Measure is adopted. Move to file item 17, AB 571. Ms. Saldana, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 571 by Assemblymember Saldana, an act relating to commercial fishing.
Ms. Saldana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this has to do with commercial lobster fishing. We did take amendments in the Senate at the request of Department of Fish and Game. The bill is sponsored by the Lobster Fishing Association industry. It has received bipartisan support. I ask for your aye vote on Senate amendments for concurrence.
Seeing and hearing no debate or discussion, clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desires to vote. 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 Ms. Saldana moves the call.
Members, we move on to file item 18, AB 599 by Mr. Hall. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 599 by Assemblymember Hall, an act relating to laboratories.
You may open, Mr. Hall.
Madam Speaker, members, Senate amendments exempt the Forensic Alcohol Analysis Laboratory from proficiency testing by the Department of Public Health if it is accredited by the American Society of Crime Laboratory Directors and requires the Forensic Alcohol Review Committee to submit a summary of the revisions to the Department by December 31st, 2010. This measure received unanimous support both in the Assembly and in the Senate. I respectfully ask for your concurrence in the Senate amendments. Thank you.
Seeing no debate or discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 57, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. We will move to file item 35 by Mr. Hall. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1282 by Assemblymember Hall and others, an act relating to alcoholic beverages and declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
You may open, Mr. Hall.
Thank you. Madam Speaker and members, the Senate amendments clarify that beer manufacturers cannot require beer wholesalers to fund promotional items. AB 1282 received strong bipartisan support in both houses, sponsored by Heineken USA, supported by Anheuser-Busch, Miller Coors, Diageo North America, and Crown Imports. I ask for your concurrence in the Senate amendments.
Seeing no debate or discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 56, noes 1. Senate amendments are concurred in. Members, we have a guest in the rear of chambers. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Lloyd Levine, Assembly Member Lloyd Levine, back to the chambers. Welcome back, Mr. Levine. All right, members, we are moving to file item 125 for purpose of amendments. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 303 with amendments by Assemblymember Hall.
You may open, Mr. Hall.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. These are amendments at the desk for SB 303, which I would like to take up at this time. Amendments to SB 303 are technical in nature and are being made at the request of the Assembly Health Committee. I respectfully ask that the amendments be adopted and that the bill go out to print and back on file.
We may take these up with the voice vote, members. All those in favor of adopting the amendments, please signify by aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The bill is out to print, back to file. Mr. Gaines, I understand that you have amendments on this bill as well.
That's correct, Madam Speaker.
Would you like to present on your amendments?
Yes, thank you.
One moment, let me have the clerk read.
Senate Bill 303 with amendments by Assemblymember Gaines, set 2.
Mr. Gaines, you may present on your amendments.
Great, thank you. My amendments would prohibit a person from obtaining more than one publicly funded abortion a year. The Department of Public Health administers the Family Health Program, which are contracted with Planned Parenthood California affiliates. This program is being proposed to receive over $1.5 billion. In addition, Medi-Cal reimburses abortion providers for the abortions for women who cannot afford to pay. In 2004, Medi-Cal paid for 39% of all abortions in California, nearly 91,000. I present these amendments. Thank you.
Mr. Torrico, on the amendments.
Madam Speaker, hereby request to lay the amendments on the table.
Mr. Torrico has requested to lay the amendments on the table. Mr. Krikorian seconds that motion. Mr. Hagman?
Is that debatable, Madam Speaker, or no?
This is a motion to lay the amendments on the table. Yes. We could do it by voice vote. Are you objecting to a voice vote? We can do it by roll call.
Yes, I'd like a roll call vote, Madam Speaker.
Very well. Members, on the procedural motion, Mr. Krikorian or Mr. Torrico moves. Mr. Krikorian seconds that we lay the amendments on the table. Clerk will open the roll on the motion. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The motion is to lay Mr. Gaines' amendments on the table. Mr. Torrico is asking for an aye vote. Mr. Hagman for a no vote. The votes are 37, ayes 37, noes 23. The amendments are tabled. We have additional amendments. We have another set of amendments on this matter that Mr. Logue would like to present. Just one moment, Mr. Logue. Clerk needs to read.
Senate Bill 303 with amendments by Assemblymember Logue, set 3.
You may open, Mr. Logue, on the amendments.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This amendment replaces the current context of the bill. Partial birth abortion is a procedure that destroys life at the moment it is yearning to breathe free. Many of those who oppose abortion, and even many of those who favor choice, ought to be able to arrive at some consensus on doing all in our power to prevent this choice. from ever being exercised. To steal the life of a fully formed and viable infant is as opposed to allowing the infant to live through the birthing process. Giving it up for adoption is unacceptable in a civilized society. Madam Speaker, I urge a no vote.
Thank you, Mr. Logue. Mr. Torrico, for what purpose?
Hereby move to lay the amendments on the table, Madam Speaker.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Krikorian seconds. Mr. Hagman?
Roll call vote, Madam Speaker.
You're objecting to the motion? We will do a roll call vote on the motion to lay these amendments on the table. Mr. Torrico moves. Mr. Krikorian seconds that we lay the amendments on the table. We'll do this by roll call vote. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Torrico is asking for an aye vote. Mr. Hagman for a no vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the votes. Ayes 37, noes 25. The amendments are tabled. We have another set of amendments on this. Mr. Mr. Gaines, on behalf of Mr. Anderson, you have additional amendments. This is set 4 that you would like to present. The clerk will read.
Senate Bill 303 with amendments by Assemblymember Anderson.
Mr. Gaines, you may present.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This amendment provides that no taxpayer funds shall be expended on an abortion for a minor without parental consent. If parents have no knowledge of their daughter's abortion, they cannot help their daughters with any of the serious physical, emotional, and psychological complications that may result from an abortion, nor can they protect their daughters from further sexual exploitation and pregnancies, nor can they counsel in favor of adoption. Thank you.
Mr. Krikorian?
Madam Speaker, I move to lay the amendments on the table.
We need a second on that, members. Mr. De La Torre, Mr. Perez seconds Mr. Krikorian's motion that we lay the amendments on the table. We will do this by a roll call vote. Mr. Hagman, you are asking for a no. Mr. Krikorian is asking for an aye. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Krikorian is asking for an aye vote to table the amendments. Mr. Hagman is asking for a no vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 38, noes 26. The amendments are tabled. We have one final set of amendments. Mr. Knight has a set of amendments to present. This is the final set of amendments on this matter. The clerk will read.
Senate Bill 303 with amendments by Assemblymember Knight, set 5.
You may present on the amendments, Mr. Knight.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This set of amendments would authorize the designated officer of a post-secondary educational institution to seek a restraining order and injunction on behalf of a student who is the subject of specified threats of violence, which can reasonably be construed to be carried out on school property. Correction. Correction, wrong. Wrong set of amendments. Sorry, Madam Speaker.
We will grant you a do-over, Mr. Knight.
I will request a do-over. I had it going. Correction, Madam Speaker. Provides that notwithstanding any other provision of law, no taxpayer's funds shall be expended for the purpose of providing for or underwriting the cost of an abortion without the informed consent of the pregnant woman. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. On the amendments, Mr. Torrico?
I move to lay the amendments on the table, Madam Speaker.
We have a second. Mr. Amiano seconds. Mr. Hagman, you will be asking for a no vote on these. We will do a roll call vote. So Mr. Torrico moves to table these amendments. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Torrico is asking for an aye vote. Mr. Hagman for a no vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 26. The motion carries. The original amendments were sustained. The bill is out to print, back to file. We do have a re-referral, however. Mr. Torrico, before we move on to take up the items that are now eligible for, after waiving the one-day file notice, I understand that we have some items to re-refer. Do you have the information on that? Mr. Torrico, on the motion? We'll return to motions and resolutions for this.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Pursuant to Assembly Rule 77.2, hereby request re-referral of the following bills to committee. Number 32, AB 1110.
Pardon me, that is actually my responsibility. Thank you. Pursuant to file item 77.2, we are re-referring the following bills to committee. File item 32, Mr. Fuentes to Utilities and Commerce. So we will re-refer that bill. All right, now, Mr. Torrico, we will move on and take up your concurrence item. So clerk will go to file item 5. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1270 by Assemblymember Torrico, an act relating to victims' compensation.
You may open, Mr. Torrico.
Thank you, Madam. I'm sorry, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much. AB 1270 is a bill that will help the victims of domestic violence, physical and sexual assault, child abuse, and vehicular manslaughter by making it easier for these victims to submit claims to the Victims' Compensation and Government Claims Board. I want to commend and thank Mr. De La Torre and the work of his committee, bringing to our attention several problems, bureaucratic and otherwise, with the Victims' Compensation Board. We found out through an audit and through the work of the committee that sometimes victims have to wait up to 4 years before they're compensated. We also found that the administration of the program is in question. Recently purchased an $8 million computer system that still doesn't work. This bill will streamline the process and will bring a small sense and semblance of justice to the victims of crime. I respectfully ask for an aye vote. I'm very proud to have bipartisan support in both the Senate and here in the Assembly.
Mr. De La Torre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I rise in support of this measure. As Assemblymember Torrico just mentioned, the Accountability Committee met in May to look into the workings of the Victims' Compensation Fund, and it was very clear that it was a broken system, not only in terms of compensating the victims of crimes, but also in paying for the services that those victims need to get their lives back in order. And so we are doubly penalizing those victims. They were the victim of a crime, and then by not fulfilling our obligations to them, make things even worse as they're trying to put their lives back together again. We found out about this computer system that is not only $8 million in, but it's been several years. It's been about, I think it was at least 5 years in setting up a computer system so bad that they have to still fill out the forms by hand on the side because the computer system is so bad. They couldn't account for how the money was spent. It's just a really bad system. Because Assemblymember Torrico had taken the leadership on this issue with legislation early in the year, we gave him some of our findings to incorporate into the bill, and he has obviously championed it for the rest of this year. I wholeheartedly support it and wanted to acknowledge the Accountability Committee's work in influencing the legislation.
Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Torrico, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think that one thing that I did want to mention, part of my
Just a moment. Members, it's getting a bit noisy in here. If you would please. Members, if you would please direct your attention to Mr. Torrico on his bill. Please continue.
Thank you. As you were. The only thing that I wanted to say on my close was this. We spent the last couple of weeks talking about sentencing reform, prison reform, and one group of people that was not very much discussed were the victims of crime. This bill makes sure that we can bring justice and closure to the many victims. And this money is not taxpayer money. It is fully funded by fines and fees imposed upon those that perpetrate the crimes. I would respectfully ask for an aye vote, particularly from my colleagues in the Republican caucus.
There is a concur recommendation on both sides, members. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 63, noes 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. We move to file item 6. File item 6 is passed temporarily. We'll go to file item 8. Mr. Jeffries, prepared to take that up. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 130 by Assemblymember Jeffries, an act relating to vital records.
You may open, Mr. Jeffries.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This bill is back in the Assembly on concurrence. This bill will conform marriage certificates to the level of protection that birth and death certificates currently enjoy by moving marriage certificates into the vital records section of the county recorder's offices. This bill is sponsored by the county recorder's office. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 63, noes 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. We move to file item 9 by Ms. Ma. File item 9 by Ms. Ma. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 144 by Assemblymember Ma, an act relating to vehicles.
You may open, Ms. Ma.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, AB 144 will improve access, mobility, and the quality of life for drivers with disabilities. Specifically, the bill will provide a disincentive for illegal use of disability placards by increasing the penalty for their misuse and by enabling local governments to combat these offenses through alternative enforcement methods. Senate amendments make technical changes, cross-references, and makes provisions on parking citations authorized in this bill consistent with existing law. Thank you, members. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no debate or discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 54, noes 6. Senate amendments are concurred in. We will return to file item 6. AB 1578, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1578 by the Assembly Committee on Governmental Organization, an act relating to horse racing.
Mr. Cotto, you may open.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Members, this is an Assembly GO committee bill. It requires the California Thoroughbred Breeder Association to distribute funds annually for a California-based bonus program. The Senate amendments were clarifying in nature. It provides for that the thoroughbred owners of California will provide funds from purses for payment of bonuses and make technical changes to the definition of certain claiming races. There is no opposition. I ask for your concurrence with Senate amendments.
There is no discussion, members. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 61, noes 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. We move on now to Ms. Skinner, file item 11. File item 11 is passed temporarily. We'll move to Mr. Monning. File item 12, AB 398. Mr. Monning is prepared to take that up. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 398 by Assemblymember Monning and others, an act relating to acquired brain trauma.
You may open, Mr. Monning.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise for concurrence with Senate amendments to Assembly Bill 398, which transfers the California Traumatic Brain Injury Program from the Department of Mental Health to the Department of Rehab. Senate amendments were taken as requested by the Department of Rehabilitation. The amendments give the department increased flexibility and improved efficiency of the program while maximizing the opportunity for increased federal funding. Additionally, an amendment was taken in the Senate Health Committee to reinsert and extend the program's sunset date in order to give the legislature the opportunity to review the transfer. AB 398 has no opposition, has received bipartisan support in both houses. I respectfully ask your aye vote in concurrence.
Mr. DeVore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ask permission to ask a question of the author, please.
Without objection.
I'm noting one of the amendments that you took in the Senate was something that caused the Republican recommendation to go from a concur to a non-concur, and specifically the amendments that would have explicitly prohibited general fund use given our multi-billion-dollar deficit. Could you address whether or not this measure explicitly prohibits the use of general funds while drawing down federal funds?
Thank you, Mr. DeVore. My understanding is that this encumbers no further general funds than already allocated for Department of Rehabilitation. It's a transference of authority from mental health to Department of Rehab. By positioning with Department of Rehab, it does position the state to receive more federal support at a time when we have veterans coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq with traumatic brain injury. There's an increased dependence on these rehab facilities. This will position California to be better equipped to receive more federal funds.
Thank you for your response. I certainly appreciate the thrust of this measure. I did support it initially on the floor. However, I am troubled by the lack of language explicitly prohibiting the use of general funds, and therefore will reluctantly oppose the measure.
Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Monning, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I respectfully request an aye vote for this bill that has received no external opposition. Thank you.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes, ayes 51, noes 8. Senate amendments are concurred in. We move to file item 13. Ms. Galgiani, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 443 by Assemblymember Galgiani and others, an act relating to apple pest.
You may open, Ms. Galgiani.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 443 by myself and Assemblymember Tom Berryhill will allow the apple industry, working in partnership with the California Department of Food and Agriculture, to identify pests of concern not known to be in California and to develop regulations for those entities seeking to import apples from areas known to have these pests. AB 443 is a narrowly tailored, proactive industry self-help program that has the support of the entire California apple industry. Amendments taken in the Senate were technical and ensure that any costs borne by the bill would be absorbed by the industry. It's received bipartisan support. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes, ayes 62, noes 1. Senate amendments are concurred in. We move to file item 14 by Mr. Eng. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 469 by Assemblymember Eng and others, an act relating to taxation.
You may open, Mr. Eng.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. AB 469 is back for concurrence. This is a simple measure that will help make the existing California use tax easier to understand increases compliance among the growing number of consumers that are turning to internet commerce, and is expected to raise about $14 million. Amendments in the Senate were minor and would make it easier for taxpayers to report this existing tax.
Mr. DeVore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Members, this measure unfortunately increases the paperwork burden on California taxpayers at a difficult time and will in fact result in more tax revenue being taken from our taxpayers and going into our tax coffers. I think it makes California a less hospitable place to live and do business, and we would respectfully request a no vote.
Seeing no further debate or discussion, Mr. Eng, care to close?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If you want to stand for businesses that report the use tax, if you want to stand with taxpayers that pay their taxes, then please vote to level the playing field. Respectfully request an aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Eng moves a call. File item 15 is passed temporarily. File item 16 has been dispensed with. 17 has been dispensed with. 18 has been dispensed with. Takes us to file item 19 by Mr. Gilmore. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 691 by Assemblymember Gilmore and others, an act relating to school districts.
You may open, Mr. Gilmore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. AB 691 is back for concurrence in the Senate amendments. The amendments were simple, including one technical fix and the addition of a co-author. This bill passed through the Senate with a bipartisan vote of 36-0. I respectfully request your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 58, noes 1. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 20 is passed temporarily. File item 20. I see you, Mr. Jones. I have a question about your bill. I need to determine. If you would mind, just we'll pass temporarily and come back to you. We'll move to file item 21 by Ms. Evans. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 729 by Assemblymember Evans, an act relating to public contracts.
You may open, Ms. Evans.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this bill extends existing design-build authority for public transportation agencies through January 1, 2015. The current authority is set to sunset on January 1, 2011. Senate amendments were technical and did not change the substance of the bill. It's sponsored by the California Transit Association and passed both houses with bipartisan support. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 63, noes 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. Members, we're going to move ahead to file item 33 by Ms. Evans. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1216 by Assemblymember Evans, an act relating to honey.
You may open, Ms. Evans.
It's a honey of a bill. This bill seeks to protect the standard of identity for honey. It protects honey consumers, honey packers, and honey producers. Believe it or not, there are instances where honey has been falsely and deceptively advertised, marketed, and labeled. So this protects the California honeybee industry. Senate amendments, again, are technical and did not change the substance of the bill. I would ask for your aye vote in concurrence.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 58, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. We'll go to file item 42 by Ms. Evans. Clerk will read.
Assembly concurrent resolution 49 by Assemblymember Evans relative to California Law Revision Commission.
You may open, Ms. Evans.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. Members, this bill is not as sweet as the previous one, but is every bit as necessary. Every legislative session, the California Law Revision Commission sponsors a resolution that continues its study authority and makes any necessary additions or deletions to the list of topics to be studied. This resolution is the resolution for this legislative session. It continues the Commission's existing study authority for 21 topics and deletes one area of study that's already been addressed. It also authorizes the Commission to study the application of the California Tort Claims Act to charter schools. The Senate amendments clarify that the Commission may both study and make recommendations to the legislature, which I would think is important for them to do. And I respectfully request an aye vote on concurrence in the Senate amendments.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 59, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. We will now return to file item 20 by Mr. Jones. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 725 by Assemblymember Jones and others, an act relating to auto insurance.
You may open, Mr. Jones.
Madam Speaker, members, AB 725 extends the existing low-cost auto insurance program, providing an affordable option for many Californians. It's back on concurrent Senate amendments. The bill has no opposition. The bill sailed out of here 78-1. There's a none recommendation with regard to our colleagues across the aisle. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 55, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. We go now to file item 22 by Ms. Brownlee. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 755 by Assemblymember Brownlee, an act relating to civil service appointments.
You may open, Ms. Brownlee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This bill is back on concurrence. AB 755 was amended in the Senate to limit visiting educators performing the duties of a represented class to a maximum term of 4 years. After 4 years, visiting educators may return to their local districts or make efforts to become permanent employees. This is a fair compromise, as 4 years is the same maximum time allowed for temporary employees at all other state agencies. This bill will return the concept of visiting educators to its original intent, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no discussion or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Ms. Brownlee moves a call. We move to file item 23 by Ms. Torres. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 769 by Assemblymember Torres, an act relating to state preschool.
You may open, Ms. Torres.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Assembly Bill 769 ensures that young children of very high-risk youth receive priority eligibility for state preschool funding, such as those on probation or in the foster system. Technical amendments were made in the Senate to make sure this bill amends the proper sections of the law. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 60, noes 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 24 is pass and retain. File item 25 by John Perez. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 811 by Assemblymember John A. Perez, an act relating to identification documents.
You may open.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, AB 811 protects consumers from being misled and coerced into purchasing useless and fraudulent identification cards. The Senate amendments delete provisions that would have restricted a check cashier's ability to charge additional fees for issuing a replacement ID card, allow prosecution under any other law where the defendant violated the false California identification laws, such as identity theft, and create a three-tier penalty schedule that includes fines, community service, and the possibility of jail time for people convicted of manufacturing fake IDs. The three-tiered penalty schedule gives judges a full range of discretion to impose an appropriate penalty in all cases. AB 811 passed the Senate floor with strong bipartisan support, and I respectfully ask for your concurrence in the Senate amendments.
Seeing no debate or discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 57, noes 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. We move to file item 26, AB 818 by Mr. Hernandez, passed temporarily. File item 27 by Mr. Huffman. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 881 by Assemblymember Huffman and others, an act relating to greenhouse gas emissions.
You may open, Mr. Huffman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a non-fiscal district bill for Sonoma County. It will enable them to better coordinate and consolidate the greenhouse gas reduction activities of all of their different local government entities. Some technical amendments were taken in the Senate, but this is substantively identical to the version the Assembly passed with 50 votes. No opposition, no cost. I would request your aye vote.
Seeing no debate or discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Huffman moves a call. We return to file item 26 by Mr. Hernandez. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 818 by Assemblymember Hernandez, an act relating to health facilities.
You may open, Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this is the Assembly concurrence on Senate amendments for AB 818, which delays the prohibition on health facilities using a tubing connection that would fit into a connector port other than the type for which it was intended until the earlier of January 1st, 2014, or 36 months after the International Organization of Standardization publishes a new application design standard for epidural connections, and earlier of January 1st, 2013, or 24 months after ISO publishes an acceptable design standard for intravenous or external connection. Senate amendments were technical in nature, and there is no opposition. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no debate or discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 56, noes 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. We move on to file item 28. John Perez, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 890 by Assemblymember John A. Perez, an act relating to public water systems.
You may open, Mr. Perez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise to ask for concurrence in Senate amendments to AB 890, the City of Maywood Safe Drinking Water Act. As you may recall, the City of Maywood has severe water quality issues that stem in part from its unique circumstances in which their water is provided. The Senate amendments revise the bill so as to eliminate all costs to the state of California by directing the water companies to develop a plan for improving their dilapidated infrastructure, which is in a shocking state of disrepair. This bill further directs the water companies to reduce the manganese contamination levels and bring them into line with the regional averages so that the residents of Maywood have water that tastes, looks, and smells similar to what residents of communities throughout the area have. The bill also directs the water companies to operate with more transparency and to respond to concerns of the residents of the City of Maywood by directing that the water companies appear at a public hearing convened by the City Council and respond in writing to any questions or complaints lodged at that meeting. Finally, the bill directs all water companies to begin sending water quality reports to the residents of Maywood and not just to the landlords of the residents. On a personal note, I'd like to thank all of the members of this body for the strong bipartisan support that this bill has received, both in committee and on the floor. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Fuhrer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to rise for a half a second to say the following in support of Mr. Perez's legislation. You know, at a time in California when most residents don't have the sense that they have the ability to change their circumstances and feel remote from state government, what Mr. Perez has done here is to really empower a community that has enjoyed very little power on an issue that none of us would stand for 1 second. And I hope that serves as an example of how we, all of us, can connect with our constituencies and give them a sense that they really matter in the process. And I urge an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Fuhrer. Mr. Perez, care to close? Seeing no further discussion.
Respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 66, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 29 is passed temporarily. File item 30 by Mr. Jones. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 921 by Assemblymember Jones and others, an act relating to children.
You may open, Mr. Jones.
Madam Speaker, members, AB 921 provides former foster youth who've become juvenile wards with the same documentation, information, and resources on independent living skills programs and services already being provided to other foster youth. They also received notice certifying their former foster youth status, indicating that they are eligible for such programs. The Senate amendments were technical and clarifying in nature. The bill has broad bipartisan support, has received no votes. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 63, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. We move to file item 31 by Mr. Ng. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 958 by Assemblymember Ng, an act relating to public contracts.
You may open, Mr. Ng.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 958 is back for concurrence on Senate amendments. This bill will authorize the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, or MWD, to use design-build contracting for the installation of solar energy systems so that the district may take advantage of the California Solar Initiative to further green its water delivery operations and to inject $170 million into capital projects in the local economy. The Senate amendments help narrow the bill by further aligning it with existing design-build regulations. This bill is a district bill. It enhances the environment, protects protects ratepayers from increasing energy costs, and provides economic job stimulus. Respectfully request an aye vote.
Seeing no discussion or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote.
Let's adjourn now.
All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 23. Senate amendments are concurred in. Members, at this time, we are going to take a recess until 2 p.m.
So happy there?
We are under call, so if you will please remain. We are still under call, members, so please stay close to the building. Be back by 2 o'clock. We will reconvene session at 2 o'clock. We're under recess.